Hare Krishna. So, we welcome you all to this reading session on Krishna book, chapter number 14, part 3 of 3. So, today we will be completing this chapter, and tomorrow will be the test at 8:30 p.m. So, let's begin with this wonderful prayer from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, 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 He. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, 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 He. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahima. Ram Raghav, Ram Raghav, Ram Raghav, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava Pahi Mam. The Pranam Mantra of Srila Prabhupada. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we had discussed yesterday that Lord Brahma had started to pray after realizing his mistake, that he had committed an offense at the lotus feet of the Lord, and he prayed. And yesterday we had seen that he requested the Lord that please grant me a boon, that if you allow me to take a birth in this holy land of Vrindavan in any of my future lives, and be it in any form, please give me this benediction that I can take birth. So now let's study ahead. What ahead does he ask for? My dear Lord, I am therefore not interested in either material opulences or liberation. I am most humbly praying at your lotus feet for you to please give me any sort of birth within this Vrindavan forest, so that I may be able to be favored by the dust of the feet of some of the devotees of Vrindavan. So he's asking that give me any birth, but within any sort of birth within this Vrindavan forest. If I am given the chance to grow as a humble blade of grass in this land, that would be a glorious birth for me. But if I am not so fortunate to take birth within the forest of Vrindavan, I beg to be allowed to take birth outside the immediate area of Vrindavan, so that when the devotees go out, they will walk over me. Even that would be a great fortune for me. I am just aspiring for a birth in which I will be smeared by the dust of the devotees' lotus feet, because I can see that everyone here is simply full of Krishna consciousness. No one here knows anything but the lotus feet of Krishna or Mukunda, for which the Vedas themselves are searching. So it is said, famous shloka, Bhakta pada dhuli, Bhakta pada jal, Bhakta Bhukta Avashesha Teen Mahabal. So there are three very potent entities in this world. Bhakta Pada Duli means the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees. Bhakta Pada Jal, the jal after doing the abhishek of the lotus feet of the devotees. And Bhakta Bhukta Avashesha, the Mahaprasad of the devotees. These are Teen Mahabal. These are three very potent entities. So what Lord Brahma is praying, that if you allow me, please allow me to take birth within Vrindavan as a mere humble blade of grass. But even if I'm not so fortunate enough, then what you allow me to do? At least allow me to take birth outside the periphery of Vrindavan, so that when devotees come out and go, they can step over me and I can receive their mercy. I will be smeared by the dust of the devotees' lotus feet. So it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the purpose of Vedic knowledge is to find Krishna. Vedeshcha sarver aham eva vedyo. And it is said in the Brahma Samhita that it is very difficult to find Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by systematic reading of the Vedic literature. But he is very easily available through the mercy of a pure devotee. The pure devotees of Vrindavan are fortunate because they can see Mukunda, Lord Krishna, all the time. This word Mukunda can be understood in two ways. Mukh means liberation, that is Mukti, and Lord Krishna can give liberation and therefore transcendental bliss. The word also refers to his smiling face, which is just like the Kunda flower. Mukha means face. The Kunda flower is very beautiful and it appears to be smiling. Thus, the comparison is made. So, Lord Krishna is said to be Mukunda for two reasons. One, because he can award Mukti Dadati. Dadati is the Sanskrit word for giving something. So, like we know, the name of mother of Lord Krishna is Yashoda. Yashoda means one who gives yash or reputation, good reputation. So, Mukunda means one who can award mukti or liberation, and the other meaning is Mukunda means one whose face, whose mukha is just like Kunda flower. The difference between the pure devotees of Vrindavan and devotees in other places is that the residents of Vrindavan have no other desire but to be associated with Krishna. Krishna, being very kind to his devotees, fulfills their desire because they always want Krishna's association. The Lord is always prepared to give it to them. The devotees of Vrindavan are also spontaneous lovers. They are not required to strictly follow regulative principles because they are already naturally developed in transcendental love for Krishna. Regulative principles are required for persons who have not achieved such a position of spontaneous love. Brahma is also a devotee of the Lord, but he is an ordinary devotee subject to following regulative principles. He prays to Krishna to give him the chance to take birth in Vrindavan so that he might be elevated to the platform of spontaneous love. So the devotees of Vrindavan, they are not required to follow the regulative principles because their life is so much aligned in such a way because they have transcendental love for Krishna. Their love is natural. And for ordinary devotees like us, we have to practice bhakti or the path of bhakti just like a tapasya. It is not natural for us to get up early, to chant our rounds, to do all these activities very naturally. We feel it to be a tapasya, yet out of faith, we do it. So, therefore, the same does not apply to the residents of Vrindavan because they are on the platform of spontaneous love. Lord Brahma continued, my lord, sometimes I am puzzled as to how your lordship will be able to repay in gratitude the devotional service of these residents of Vrindavan. Although I know that you are the supreme source of all benediction, I am puzzled to know how you will be able to repay all the service that you are receiving from these residents of Vrindavan. I think of how you are so kind, so magnanimous that even Putana, who came to cheat you by dressing herself as a very affectionate mother, was awarded liberation and the actual post of a mother. And other demons belonging to the same family, such as Aghasur and Bakasur, were also favored with liberation and achieved you. Under the circumstances, I am puzzled. These residents of Vrindavan have given you everything, their bodies, their minds, their love, their homes, their possession. Everything is being utilized for your purpose. So, how will you be able to repay your debt to them? You have already given yourself to Putana. I surmise that you shall ever remain a debtor to the residents of Vrindavan, being unable to repay their loving service. So, Lord Brahma is just asking this question that when Putana came, just like who tried to kill you, and you gave her the post of a mother, so, and the people from the same family, her two brothers, Bakasur, Aghasur, you even liberated them. So these people came to harm you, and you have given them such a final destination. So, what will happen to these residents of Vrindavan who have dedicated every aspect of their life towards you? You will never be able to repay the debt of Vrindavan Vasis. So, you will always remain a debtor to residents of Vrindavan. My lord, I can understand that the super excellent quality of the service rendered by the residents of Vrindavan is due to their spontaneously engaging all natural instincts in your loving service. It is said that attachment for material objects and home is due to illusion, which makes a living entity conditioned in the material world. But this is only the case for persons who are not Krishna conscious. In the case of the residents of Vrindavan, such obstructions as attachment to hearth and home are non existent because their attachment has been directed unto you and their homes have been converted into temples by your constant presence there. And because they have forgotten everything for your sake, there is no impediment. For a Krishna conscious person, there is no such thing as impediments due to attachment for hearth and home, nor is there illusion. So, Lord Brahma is very clearly explaining the position of the Vrindavan Vasis that they don't have any attachment, that their attachment is primarily to whom? To Krishna. Krishna is their life and soul, and therefore he is he is such an integral part of their life that their attachment to home, hearth is non existent. Their home itself is a temple because they have their life is completely devoted to Krishna. So, Lord Srila Prabhupada is writing over here for a person who is Krishna consciousness, in Krishna conscious, there is no such impediment due to attachment for hearth and home. There will be no illusion to such a person. I can also understand that your appearance as a small cowherd boy, a child of the cowherd men, is not at all a material activity. You are so much obliged by their affection that you are here to inspire them with more loving service by your transcendental presence. In Vrindavan, there is no distinction between material and spiritual because everything is dedicated to your loving service. My dear Lord, your Vrindavan pastimes are simply to inspire your devotees. If someone takes your Vrindavan pastimes to be material, he will be misled. My dear Lord Krishna, those who deride you, claiming that you have a material body like an ordinary man, are described in the Bhagavad Gita as demoniac and less intelligent. You are always transcendental. The non devotees are cheated because they consider you to be a material creation. Actually, you have assumed this body which exactly resembles that of an ordinary cowherd boy, simply to increase the devotion and transcendental bliss of your devotees. So, here Lord Brahma is trying to explain that what is the difference between something material and spiritual. So, he says that in this Vrindavan, there is no distinction between material and spiritual. Why? Because what is the difference between material and spiritual? When something is used in the service of the Lord, it is spiritual, and when something is used for the service of satisfaction of our own senses, that becomes material. So, if everything is being used in service to the Lord, then even the material world will become spiritual world, right? So, Vrindavan is such a place where everything is being used in the service of the Lord, that is dedicated for the service of the Lord. Therefore, there is no difference between material and spiritual. So, this is a very important concept that we can learn, that we might be having so many assets, resources in our life, but if we use all those resources in service to Krishna, the same entity becomes spiritual. A microphone which is used to record a Krishna conscious lecture is is spiritual. On the other hand, a microphone which is used for recording all material stuff, material songs, is material, right? Because there is no purpose which it is solving in service of the Lord. So, Lord Krishna has taken he is assuming the resemblance of ordinary cowherd boy just to increase the devotion and transcendental bliss of his devotees. My dear Lord, I have nothing to say about people who advertise that they have already realized God or that by their realization they have themselves become God. But as far as I am concerned, I admit frankly that for me, it is not possible to realize you by my body, mind, or speech. What can I say about you? Or how can I realize you by my senses? I cannot even think of you perfectly with my mind, which is the master of the senses. Your qualities, your activities, and your body cannot be conceived of by any person within this material world. Only by your mercy one can understand to some extent what you are. So, people who are trying to understand Krishna by speculation or by use of their senses or the mind, they will not be able to understand Krishna. What Brahma is saying, only by your mercy. If Lord Krishna bestows his mercy, one can understand him to some extent. Only to some extent one can understand. And as we had read in the previous part of this chapter itself, that as soon as if even if somebody understands Krishna completely, the next moment Krishna's qualities increase. So nobody can understand Krishna completely. So then we move ahead. My dear Lord, you are the supreme Lord of all creation, although I sometimes falsely think that I am the master of this universe. So Lord Krishna over here, he's saying that I sometimes feel that I am the master of this universe. I may be the master of this universe, but there are innumerable universes, and there are also innumerable Brahmas who preside over these universes. So it's being said that not only this universe, there are millions of universes and there are millions of Brahmas who are presiding over these universes. So our Brahmaji is having only four mukha, but there are universes which have multiple thousands of mukhas, millions of mukhas, heads. So therefore, this Brahma in which we live, the universe that we live, he is a pure devotee. But it is not mandatory that all the Brahmas, a Brahma will be a pure devotee, right? But actually, you are the master of them all. As the super soul in everyone's heart, you know everything. Please, therefore, accept me as your surrendered servant. I hope that you will excuse me for committing the great offense of disturbing you in your pastimes with your friends and calves. Now, if you will kindly allow me, I will immediately leave so that you can enjoy with your friends and calves without my presence. So, Lord Brahma then took permission that he had mistakenly done a mistake, mistakenly obstructed the pastimes of the Lord, and therefore he wanted to beg his pardon and leave so that Lord Krishna can continue his pastimes. My dear Lord Krishna, your very name suggests that you are all attractive. The attraction of the sun and the moon are all due to you. By the attraction of the sun, you are beautifying the very existence of the Yadu dynasty. With the attraction of the moon, you are enhancing the potency of the land, the demigods, the Brahmanas, the cows, and the oceans. Because of your supreme attraction, demons like Kamsa and others are annihilated. Therefore, it is my deliberate conclusion that you are the only worshipable entity within this creation. Accept my humble obeisances until the annihilation of this material world. As long as there is sunshine within this material world, kindly accept my humble obeisances. So we can see that Lord Brahma, who is such an elevated personality, he's not an ordinary person like us. Although he is also a Jivatma, yet he's very knowledgeable, very respectable personality in this universe, and he's acting so humbly, paying his obeisances to Lord Krishna. And we, on the contrary, we see that there are so many people, atheistic in nature, agnostics, who do not believe in the existence of God, they deride, they say foul words. But Lord Krishna is so compassionate that he forgives them all, right? So, what we can learn from this pastime is that despite all the resources, all the material designations, whatever we have got by Lord's grace, we should never become puffed up, but rather we should always try to engage ourselves in the service of the Lord. And we can follow the footsteps of Lord Brahma, who just wanted to become a humble servant of all the Vaishnavas. In this way, Brahma, the master of this universe, after offering humble and respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and circumambulating him 3 times, was ready to return to his abode known as Brahmaloka. By his gesture, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gave him permission to return. So, Lord indicated him, okay, you can go. As soon as Brahma left, Lord Sri Krishna immediately returned to the bank of the Jamuna and rejoined his calves and cowherd boyfriends who were situated just as they had been on the very day they had vanished. Krishna had left his friends on the bank of the Jamuna while they were engaged in lunch, and although he returned exactly 1 year later, the cowherd boys thought that he had returned within a second. So, Lord Krishna, when he had left for looking for the calves with a morsel of food in his hand, Lord Krishna's friends just felt that he had come just after a second. Right? That is the way Krishna's different energies act. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna himself is residing in everyone's heart and he causes both remembrance and forgetfulness. All living entities are controlled by the supreme energy of the Lord, and sometimes they remember and sometimes they forget their constitutional position. His friends, being controlled in such a way, could not understand that for 1 whole year they were absent from the Jamuna's bank and were under the spell of Brahma's illusion. So Lord Brahma had returned the children as well as the calves, and they did not feel that they had been away for a year. When Krishna appeared for before the boys, they thought, "Oh, Krishna has returned within a minute." They began to laugh, thinking that Krishna was not willing to leave their lunchtime company. So, at that time, Lord Krishna had told them, "Ki guys, you have a great time. You don't miss your lunch. I will go and search for the calves." But the calves had actually been stolen by Brahma. So, therefore, they felt that Krishna had just immediately come back, and all of them laughed that Krishna has just come within a minute. This means that he does not want to leave our company. And during lunch, they were very jubilant and invited him. Dear friend Krishna, you have come back so quickly. All right, we have not as yet begun our lunch, not even taken one morsel of food. All right, so please come and join us and let us eat together. Krishna smiled and accepted their invitation, and he began to enjoy the lunchtime company of his friends. While eating, Krishna was thinking, "These boys believe that I have come back within a second, but they do not know that for the last year I have been involved with the mystic activities of Lord Brahma." So Lord Krishna is thinking that these my friends and have completely no knowledge about what has happened. After finishing their lunch, Krishna and his friends and calves began to return to their Vrajbhumi homes. While passing, they enjoyed seeing the dead carcass of um, Aghasur in the shape of a gigantic serpent. When Krishna returned home to Vrajbhumi, he was seen by all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. He was wearing a peacock feather in his helmet, which was also decorated with forest flowers. Krishna was also garlanded with flowers and painted with different colored minerals collected from the caves of Govardhan Hill. Govardhan Hill is always famous for supplying natural red oxides, and Krishna and his friends painted their bodies with them. Each of them had a bugle made of buffalo horn and a stick and a flute, and each called his respective calves by their particular names. They were so proud of Krishna's wonderful activities that while entering the village, they all sang his glories. So for the past 1 year, they had no idea that they had come back. So all the gopis in Vrindavan saw beautiful Krishna entering the village. The boys composed nice songs describing how they were saved from being swallowed by the great serpent and how the serpent was killed. Some described Krishna as the son of Yashoda and others as the son of Nanda Maharaj. He is so wonderful that he has saved us from the clutches of the great serpent and killed him, they said. But little did they know that 1 year had passed since the killing of Aghasur. In this regard, Maharaj Parikshit asked Shukdev Goswami how the inhabitants of Vrindavan suddenly developed so much love for Krishna, although he was not a member of any of their families. So now the same question that we had in our mind, that why this love was increasing so much, even Maharaj Parikshit asked the same. Maharaj Parikshit inquired, during the absence of the original cowherd boys, when Krishna expanded himself, why is it that the boys' parents became more loving towards him than towards their own sons? Also, why did the cows become so loving towards the calves more than towards their own calves? Shukdev Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit that every living entity, so we can pay a little more attention in this section. This is a very nice answer to why this phenomenon happened. Shukdev Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit that every living entity is actually most attached to his own self. Outward paraphernalia such as home, family, friends, country, society, wealth, opulence, and reputation are all only secondary in pleasing the living entity. They please only because they bring pleasure to the self. For this reason, one is self centered and is attached to his body and self more than he is to the relatives like wife, children, and friends. If there is some immediate danger to one's own person, he first of all takes care of himself, then others. That is natural. That means he loves his own self more than anything else. The next important object of affection after his own self is his material body. So it's being explained that the first person loves himself, his own self, and then he loves his own material body, and then he goes to the secondary ones like friends, society, home, family, country, society, wealth, reputation, etc. So a person who has no information about the spirit soul is very much attached to this material body, so much so that even in old age he wants to preserve the body in so many artificial ways, thinking that his old and broken body can be saved. Everyone is working hard day and night just to give pleasure to his own self under either the bodily or the spiritual concept of life. We are attached to material possessions because they give pleasure to the senses or to the body. The attachment to the body is there only because the I, the spirit soul, is within the body. So, what's being explained? The why this attachment is present. The attachment to the body is there only because the I, the spirit soul, is within the body. And similarly, when one is further advanced, he knows that the spirit soul is pleasing because it is part and parcel of Krishna. So one is attached to himself because he is a part and parcel of Krishna. Ultimately, it is Krishna who is pleasing and all attractive. He is the super soul of everything, and in order to give us this information, Krishna descends and tells us that the all attractive center is He Himself. Without being an expansion of Krishna, nothing can be attractive. So it's being explained that all of us are attached to Krishna, as we had discussed yesterday also, that since we are part and parcel of Krishna, therefore we are attached to our own self, right? Because nothing, in unless and until something is a part and parcel of Krishna, it cannot be attractive. Without being an expansion of Krishna, nothing can be attractive. Whatever is attractive within the cosmic manifestation is due to Krishna. Krishna is therefore the reservoir of all pleasure. The active principle of everything is Krishna, and highly elevated transcendentalist can see everything in connection with him. In the Chaitanya Charitamrit, it is stated that a Mahabhagavat or a highly advanced devotee sees Krishna as the active principle in all movable and immovable living entities. Therefore, he sees everything within this cosmic manifestation in relation to Krishna. So, a pure devotee, a Mahabhagavat, or a highly advanced devotee, what he sees Krishna as the active principle everywhere. He sees the hand of Krishna in all entities, in all movable entities, in all immovable living entities. Therefore, He sees everything within this cosmic manifestation in relation to Krishna. For the fortunate person who has taken shelter of Krishna as everything, liberation is already there. He is no longer in this material world. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Whoever is engaged in the devotional service of Krishna is already on the Brahmabhuta or the spiritual platform. Brahmabhuta prasanna atma na shochati na kankshati. Uh, the very name Krishna suggests piety and liberation. Anyone who takes shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna enters the boat for crossing over the ocean of nescience. For him, this vast expanse of the material manifestation becomes an insignificant as the water in a calf's hoof print. So we had discussed this in the chapter number 2 also, that those who have taken the shelter of the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, for them the whole cosmic manifestation, this ocean of nescience, becomes equal to the water in a calf's hoof print, which any, even a small child, can cross over. Krishna is the shelter of all great souls, and he is also the shelter of the material worlds. For one who is on the platform of Krishna consciousness, Vaikuntha or the spiritual world is not far away. He does not live within the material world where there is danger at every step. In this way, Krishna consciousness was fully explained to Maharaj Parikshit by Shukdev Goswami as he recited to the king the statements and prayers of Lord Brahma. These descriptions of Lord Krishna's pastimes with his cowherd boys, his eating with them on the bank of the Jamuna, and Lord Brahma's prayers unto him are all transcendental subject matters. Anyone who hears, recites, or chants them surely gets all his spiritual desires fulfilled. Thus, Krishna's childhood pastimes, his sporting with Balaram, and the cowherd boys in Vrindavan were described. So, by this, we come to the end of this chapter, and it is being a benediction being given over here that anyone who hears or recites what the description of Lord Krishna's pastime of his cowherd boyfriends eating with him on the bank of Jamuna, what will happen? What will happen to them? All their spiritual desires will be fulfilled. Thus, Krishna's childhood pastimes, his sporting with Balaram, and with cowherd boys in Vrindavan were described. So, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 14th chapter of Krishna, prayers offered by Lord Brahma to Lord Krishna. So, here we will close our session, and chapter number 14 is over. So, tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. we will be holding the test for this chapter. So we wish you all the best for tomorrow's test. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.